Hello beautiful people, I am back again with another tutorial, and today we're going to learn how to make this simple and beautiful beaded bag design. This design was inspired by the trendy Bottega Cassette bag. It also comes with an adjustable chain strap. It looks very cute. So let me teach you how you can make yours, okay? Let's go! For this project you need your beads. So I have my plastic round beads here, and this is in size 8mm. You also need some fishing line. Today we'll be using 0.70mm. You also need a pair of connector rings. This is what they look like. You'll also need 2 pairs of magnetic buttons. I'll be using the regular ones as usual. You'll also need your chain. This is for the strap of the bag, and I got about a yard of this, just a yard, okay? And lastly, you need your scissors. That is all we'll need for this project. Now let's get to work. To start, you're going to cut out a length of line that will be comfortable for you to work with. Now the first thing we'll work on will be the base of the bag before we then finish up the height and the remaining structure, okay? And to do that, on the left hand side, we're going to start with 4 beads. Then you drag down 3 and cross both ends of your line through the last bead added like this. Then you draw that all the way down. And now you just made your very first ring. To continue, on both sides of the line, we're going to add 1 bead each. On the left, 1 bead, on the right, 1 bead. Then we take 1 more bead and cross both ends of our line through that bead, just like this. You draw that all the way down. And this right here is your second ring. To continue, we'll repeat this step we just made. On both sides, 1 bead each. On the left, 1 bead. On the right, 1 bead. Then we take 1 more bead and cross both ends of our line through that bead. Then you draw that down as well. And right here, you have your third ring. So this step is very easy, and this is what you'll keep up with until you get to your total desired length, okay? We have done 3 rings so far, and like I said earlier, we're working on the base of our bag. So the total desired length of our base is 16 rings, but I'm going to stop at 15 rings because the 16th one will be different, okay? So let's meet all the way there at 15 rings. 15 rings. Let's go. I'm here now at 15 rings. Make sure your work is straight and it looks just like this. Like I said, the total length of the base of our bag is 16 rings. That means we have just 1 ring left to complete this. To complete this last ring, it won't be our usual 1 on each side and cross with 1. No, this time around, just on the left hand side alone, I'm going to add 3 beads. I'll drag down 2 and cross both ends of my line through the last one. So when I draw that all the way down, it will take me to the other side of my work, just like this. And now I am done with the first row of the base of my bag, okay? Now let's move over to the next step. It's now time to create the second row of the base of our bag. So let's just flip this over like this. Then on the left hand side of our line, we're going to start a row with 3 beads. Then you cross both ends through the last one added. And right here you have your first ring on your second row. To continue, the right will go through that bead. That's the next bead facing where we are. Pass your line through it. And on the left you add 2 beads. Then you cross into the last one added. Now you have your second ring on your second row. Let's do that again. The right would go through the next bead, and on the left we add 2 beads and cross into the last one. Here we have the third ring on the second row. So this step is what we're going to keep up with until we get all the way through this row. But stop right here at the second to the last one. Why? Because the last ever ring on this row will be different. Let's go. I'm here now at the second to the last one, so let's complete it together. On the left, 2 beads, then we cross into the last one. We're done with that, and now it's time to complete the last ever ring on our second row. As usual, the right would go through the next bead. but this time the pattern will change. Instead of the left, I'm going to add 2 beads on the right hand side. Okay, add 2 beads on the right hand side alone, then I'm going to cross through the last one added, and this will take me over to the other side of my work. Finally, I am done with the second row of the base of our bag. This is what my work looks like, and this is what yours should look like as well. So far, I have taught you how to start a row and how to end a row. Now let's go through this process one more time before I leave you to finish up the base height on your own. Now let's revise. To start a new row, what do? We start with 3 beads on the left hand side of our line, and then we cross both ends through the last one. Once that is done, the next thing is to pass our line through the next bead, and on the left hand side we add 2 beads and cross into the last one. We would then keep up with this pattern of 2 beads until we get all the way down, but remember we have to stop at the second to the last one. Okay, so let's go. I'm here now at the second to the last one. Let's complete it together. Now it's complete. It's now time to complete the last ever ring on this third row. So the right will go through the next bead, but instead of the left hand side, the 2 beads will be added to the right hand side alone, and then we cross into the last one, and this will take us over to the other side. Now we have finished the third row of the base of our bag. So by now I think you understand how to start a row, how to end the row. Okay, I hope it's very clear to you. From here on now, I'm going to leave you to finish up this base height by yourself. We're supposed to have a total of 4 rows in our base, so I'll leave you to complete the last row on your own. Let's go. I'm here now at 4 rows. Finally, I'm done with the base of my bag. So this is what your work should look like as well. It is now time for the next part. It's time to work on the row height of our bag. Right where we are, we're going to start a new row. And you remember, to start a new row, we start with 3 beads, and then we cross into the last one. But as you draw that down, make sure it sits right up like this, okay? To continue, the right hand side will then go through the next bead, and on the left hand side we add 2 beads. Let's keep on going. The right goes into the next bead, and on the left we add 2 beads. Now this is our pattern of 2 beads. We will then keep this going until we get all around this base. Okay, keep it going, but stop right here at second to the last one, because the last one will be different. So let's go. I have beaded all around my base, and I'm right here at the second to the last one. Let us then complete it together. On the left I add 2 beads and cross into the last one. It's now time to finish up this first row height of our bag. What we have right here is what we usually call a dead end. It's the last ever ring here on this row. So we're going to take the right hand side of our line and pass it through the last ring and that bead on the side right there. Okay, those 2 beads. Once that is done, we then take just 1 bead and cross both ends of our line through that bead, and that completes the very first row of the height of our bag. This is what we have. Right now I just taught you how to start a row and how to end a row. Remember, you start a row with 3 beads, and then you keep up with the pattern of 2 beads all around the base, and when you get to the second to the last one, you take note of the last ever ring, which is to pass your right hand side through the next 2 beads. So this is all I'll be explaining for this part. What you're going to do now is to keep making the rows. You need to make up to 12 rows in total. That would be the total row height of our bag. Okay, 12 rows in total. So let's meet all the way there. Let's go. I'm here now. I'm done building the row height of my bag, and this is what we have. The measurement of our bag is 16 rings by 12 rings. Okay, we're already halfway through. It is now time for the next part. It's time to build the flap of our bag, and this step is very simple. It's just like we did earlier. We're going to build rows, but we're going to start from this bead right here on the edge. cut out a new line. You're going to pass it through that bead, and on the left hand side we start with 3 beads. Then the right goes into the next bead, and on the left 2 beads. We then keep that going until we get all the way down. I'm here now, and at this last ring we're going to add the 2 beads on the right instead of the left. So yes, this is the same step we did earlier. We're going to keep building the rows until we reach our desired total flap length. My desired total flap length is 16 rows, okay? 16 rows. So let's meet right there. I'm here now at 16 rows, and here is what it looks like. This is what your work should look like as well. It's now time to shape up our flap. We want to define the edges. So right there from the very first row we started with, we want to make sure our flap matches the same number of rings on the side of our bag, which is 4. From the very first row we started with, we're going to count 4 beads from the flap, and then we shape it and bend it right there at the 4th ring. Keep shaping it up nicely until it's well defined. Alright, we are done with that. We are done creating the flap of our bag. It is now time for the next part. It's time to add our magnetic buttons to our bag. But since I'm using the regular magnetic buttons, that means I have to shape the bottom part of the magnetic buttons first. And to do that, it's very simple. All we need to do is to press on the ends just like this until it's very flat. Okay, and this is what it should look like. You're then going to repeat the same thing to others as well. I'm done with that. The next step is to then locate where these magnetic buttons will be placed. To do that, let's open up our flap like this. We would attach the first pair of the button on the flap. So we have to locate where it would be on the flap. To do that, from the edge right there, I'm going to count inwards, okay? So it's 1, 2, 3, then 1. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, and 1. Right there is where our magnetic button will be placed. We will then start with the flatter part of this button. Look how thin this is. So this part is going to stay right there on the flap. Then we're going to cut out some line. Then we're going to pass it through that ring we picked out, okay? Right, then we'll pass it through the top part of that ring. Once that is done, we'll then pass our line through the holes in that magnetic button. As you can see, there are some holes right there on the sides. So pass the right hand side through the right and the left through the left. Once that is done, you then connect both ends of your line through the bottom part of that ring we picked out, just like this. Cross both ends through it. Make sure it's very, very tight, and this is what you'll have. We're not done yet. We will then go ahead to pass our line through the sides of that same ring. Okay, we're done with that, and now we're going to end our line. So let's do that. I'm done with that, and here is what we have. So we are done fixing one part of our magnetic button. It's now time to fix the second pair, and this part will stay on the body of the bag. As usual, we have to locate where it will be fixed. So from the edge, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, then 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, then 1, and right there is where it will be placed. Now let's do the same thing. We take some line and pass it through the top part of that ring we picked out. Then you pass your line through both sides of the magnetic button. Then you're going to connect both sides through the bottom part of that ring we picked out. Once that is done, we'll also pass through the sides of that ring, and here on we're going to end our line. I'm done with that, and this is what we have. We have finished fixing one complete pair of our magnetic button. I will then leave you to finish up the second pair on your own, okay? So let's do that. I'm done with mine, and here's what I have. Let us then close that up. And yeah, we are done. It's now time for the next and most crucial part. It's time to create the block pattern on the flap of our bag. Now the measurement of each block on this flap of our bag is supposed to be 4 by 4. That is 4 rings in width and 4 rings in height. So let's locate that. From the first bead on the edge, I will count 4 beads inwards. That's the width, and the height I will do the same as well. So the first block will be within these areas. Now we're going to cut out some line and pass it through the first ring on the height of this block. Then on the left hand side, you're going to start a row, of course with 3 beads. Once that is done, the right will go through the next bead, and on the left 2 beads. You will then keep up with this until you get to the last ever ring. To complete this last ring, we will then add 2 beads on the right instead of the left. Now you have completed the first row of the block. You then keep up with this process just like I taught you how to build rows. You're going to make this onto 4 rows. Let's meet there at 4 rows. It's now time to connect the rows to the last ring within that area we picked out. First of all, let us locate it again. We'll count 4 rings, and that 4th ring would be our limit. In fact, let's give it a mark so that we do not lose sight of it. Once that is done, we'll then trace upwards as well. Count 4 rings upwards, and right there is also our limit. It is now time to connect our rows to those rings we have marked out. We're going to connect it to the side, the right hand side of those rings. Firstly, we're going to take 1 bead and pass through the line, then pass it through the right hand side of that ring. Once that is done, we'll then take 1 bead and cross both ends of our line through that bead. And now we have closed one part. To continue, both sides of your line would go through the right hand side still in that lane, and the left would go through the left hand side. Then we take 1 more bead to close the gap. Keep that going, right to the right and the left to the left. Then you take 1 bead to close the gap. But now at the final part, we do the same thing. Then we close the gap. And that is all for this. What we're going to do right now is to pass around our line to end it. Let's do that. I'm done, and here is what I have. Right now, I just taught you how to build the blocks, okay? And we're going to repeat this block pattern all over our flap. Now we have to locate the next part where this block will be placed. But like I said earlier, the size of our blocks is 4 by 4. Now I'm going to count the next parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. But these parts right here, I'm going to skip. I will not be building any blocks right here. Instead, I'm going to go over to the next part. Count 4. And right here within these areas is where the next block will be placed. Okay? So let's do that. I'm done, and here is what it looks like. So far we have created 2 blocks. We have a block, a gap, a block, and a gap. It's now time to go over to the next row. Okay, we have done 1 complete row of blocks. We then go over to the next row of blocks. So right here, because this part is vacant, that means there has to be a block right there. Over there within these areas, I'm going to create another block. So let's do that. I'm done with that. So far I have created 3 blocks. The next part is to skip the next area. Okay, then we're going to go over to the next 2 areas and create another block right here. Okay, let's go. I am done with mine, and as you can see, the pattern is block, gap, block, gap. This is what you want to do all over the flap. Okay, we have 1 more row of block to complete. I'll leave you to do this part on your own. Let's do that. I have completed the block pattern all over the flap, and I hope you have as well. It is now time for the next part. It is time to add our connector rings right on top of our flap. Firstly, we have to locate exactly where the connector rings will be placed. So right there at the top of the flap, we have to pick a spot. But usually when we are trying to attach things like this, we make sure what we are working with is of an odd number. But right here we have 4 rings on the top of this flap. It's not an odd number, okay? But still we'll work with it. Now we're going to trace through to where the connector ring will be placed. So from the first bead on the edge, I'm going to count 1, 2, then 1, 2, 3. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And this spot right here is where our connector ring will be fixed. Then you're going to pass your line through the left hand side of that ring you picked out. Then on both sides of the line you add 1 bead each. Then you cross with 1 bead. Do that again. 1 bead each. Then you cross with 1 bead. The next thing is to add 1 bead each. But hold on. Now it's time to introduce our connector rings. We then pass our line like this through the connector ring. Throw that all the way down and make sure it sits right in the middle like this. The next thing you'll do is to then connect your line, the left hand side of your line, through the right part of that ring we picked out. Okay, pass it through like this. Then we're going to connect that same line through the bead on the right. Make sure it's super tight, and yeah, this is what it looks like. We're not done. Look closely at the side. We have to make sure that place is well secured, so we're going to pass our line through those beads there, the right to the right, the left to the left. Then we cross both ends through the bottom one right there, and finally we are done with this. Right now I'll go ahead to end my line. I have ended my line and I'm done with one part of the connector ring. The second part, I'll leave you to do that on your own. Remember where it to be placed. You have to count from the first bead on the edge. 1, 2, then 1, 2, 3. And that spot is where the second one will be placed. So let's do that. We are done with both connector rings, and here is what we have. It is now time for the final part of this bag making. It's time to attach our chain strap to our bag. As you can see, I have already split one loop of chain open. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is to pass your chain through the connector rings just in a straight line. Make sure your chain is also straight. Draw it through both connector rings. Once that is done, we will then connect the chain using the loop we opened. Then I'm going to close this loop using a plier. Okay, but I'm going to do this off camera. Let's do that. And finally we are done with our bag. Look at how cute this looks. This bag is so simple to make and yet classy. You know, it has become my favorite beaded bag so far. Why? Because I can literally carry it anywhere I want to. It has now become my everyday bag. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you did, please do not forget to like and share this video with your friends. Okay, now tell me, will you recreate this bag, and what color would you recreate it in? Let me know in the comments. Okay, and I'm gonna see you all in the next tutorial. Goodbye.